You know, we hear the word bombshell, and I think certainly it's true in this case.
Reveling in your extracts, very juicy stuff.
If there's one thing Tom Bauer understands better than anyone, it's timing. He doesn't lob accusations into the daylight and hope they stick. He waits. He watches. And then he drops the match when the room is already soaked in gasoline. They're setting up in California to spread wellness, and love and sincerity have done the exact opposite. They have dumped on their family, dumped on Britain. And this time, according to this account, he didn't just strike a nerve. He shattered the floor beneath Prince Harry's feet. Because the moment Bauer hinted that he was holding material capable of collapsing the Sussex story in a single blow, Harry didn't react like a man confident in the truth. He reacted like someone cornered. Within hours, legal threats were flying. Messages sent through intermediaries. Warnings whispered to journalists. Sue silence. Shut it down. It says he interviewed more than 80 sources for the unofficial biography, but Tom didn't blink. Instead, he calmly signaled something far more dangerous than a scandal. Evidence, not gossip, not vibes, not anonymous chatter. Documents, records, timelines, witnesses. The kind of material that doesn't need defending because it speaks for itself. And then came the line that made Harry spiral. This isn't about rumors. This is about paternity. That's when everything changed. Because challenging the legitimacy of a royal child isn't tabloid sport. It's existential. It strikes at bloodlines, titles, inheritance, and the one thing the monarchy cannot afford to gamble with, certainty. It's where I felt closest to my mother and sought solace after she died, and where I knew I had found a soul. Harry's rage was immediate and volcanic. Phones thrown, doors slammed, advisors frozen out. He demanded lawsuits, injunctions, retractions. But behind the fury wasn't confidence. It was panic. Because if this were truly nonsense, there was one simple solution. One nuclear option that would end the story instantly, a DNA test. And yet, no one offered it. What Tom Bauer claimed next was far more surgical. He said the information he was preparing to release was directly tied to secret pregnancy records, unexplained travel anomalies, and an early connection between Meghan Markle and a businessman in Colombia whose name had never appeared in mainstream coverage until now. The internet, already feral, did what it does best. It dug. Flight logs resurfaced. Charity trips were re-examined. Dates were circled. Screenshots resurrected. A pattern began to form that, true or not, looked disturbingly coherent. And then came the witness. Not a faceless source, not a blurred voice, but a man the public already knew. A man who had nothing left to gain and everything to lose. Trevor Engelsen, Meghan's first husband. The one written out of the fairy tale like an inconvenient prologue. The stepping stone, the footnote, the man who until now had stayed silent for over a decade until Tom Bauer put him on the record. But before Trevor even spoke, the internet detonated again. At exactly 12:40 a.m. West Coast time, when gossip spreads fastest and defenses are weakest, an anonymous X account appeared. No profile photo, no history, one post, one image, one sentence. Everyone thinks they know. They know nothing at all. The photograph was intimate in a way that made people uncomfortable. Meghan Markle in a luxury hotel hallway. Her body angled toward a man who was very clearly not Prince Harry. The lighting was warm, the space private, the moment unguarded. His arm was around her waist in a way that crossed the line from friendly to familiar. His build was wrong, his posture wrong, his wrist unmistakable. A leather bracelet with a metal cross pendant. The same bracelet Eagle-eyed users matched to a Colombian businessman who'd appeared briefly in promotional footage months earlier. Within minutes, the image went viral. People zoomed in, enhanced shadows, compared frames, matched jewelry. The man wasn't tall and lanky like Harry. He was solid, athletic, confident in a way that didn't read royal at all. More money than titles, more power than protocol. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the account vanished, deleted, scrubbed. Professional, too professional. But screenshots are forever. And right on cue, Tom Bauer stepped forward like a man who had been waiting for the curtain to rise. One short post, no emojis, no hysteria. Some stories don't disappear when you delete them. They disappear when the truth is proven. This one hasn't been. Then the line that froze the internet. The firstborn child may not belong to the man the public believes. No names, no accusations, just implications sharp enough to cut glass. Hours later, the announcement dropped. A new podcast series, weekly episodes, documents, witnesses. A promise not of spectacle, but of exposure. I've interviewed hundreds. I've reviewed records from Hollywood to Colombia. What I found changes everything. Harry's camp responded with noise, denials, threats, fury, but noise doesn't extinguish fire. It feeds it. And still no DNA test. Episode 1 dropped on a Friday night when defenses are down and curiosity is high. Tom's voice was calm, methodical, almost gentle, which made it worse. He described sitting on documents linked directly to Archie's birth, medical inconsistencies, gaps in reporting, sealed details that deviated sharply from royal precedent. No hospital confirmation, no named doctors, no timestamps, just vague statements and carefully managed appearances. Then he rewound the story. 2 weeks earlier, a private California villa, a guest list so elite no phones were allowed. Tech billionaires, Hollywood royalty, and a host with access to private jets the way most people have Uber, Victoria Jackson, a jet loan, a charity trip to Colombia, and after the flight home, something left behind. A leather briefcase discovered by a night shift cleaner. Inside, according to Tom, was a high-resolution print of the same hotel hallway image. Clearer, closer, undeniable. And that's where the story truly began to turn dark. Because suddenly this wasn't about gossip. It was about what people were willing to hide and why. And as Harry listened, according to this account, something inside him cracked, not anger this time, not defiance, fear. Because if Tom was willing to release this much just to force a reaction, what was he still holding back? And why was no one on the Sussex side reaching for the one piece of proof that could end it all in seconds? The silence wasn't just loud, it was devastating. In this narrative, the moment episode 2 dropped, the atmosphere shifted from scandal to something far more dangerous. Belief, not proof. Belief is worse. Because belief doesn't wait for courts or DNA kits or official statements. Belief spreads through feeling, through pattern recognition, through that gut-level sense that something just doesn't add up. And Tom Bauer knew exactly how to lean into that without ever stepping over a legal line. He didn't accuse. Prince Harry are sharing a peek at life in California with little Archie. He presented episode 2 opened without music, without hype, just Tom clearing his throat and then a sentence that landed like a guillotine. Tonight, I'm not speaking to an anonymous source. I'm speaking to a man who lived this. And then Trevor Angleson's voice filled the feed. Not angry, not theatrical, just tired. The kind of tired that only comes from holding something in for years while watching the world celebrate a story you know isn't clean. Trevor didn't start with accusations. He started with context. The marriage, the ambition, the shift in Meghan once doors began opening. The late nights, the sudden international contacts, the secrecy that grew alongside her career momentum. Then he described the night, the hotel, the hallway, the smell of coffee and disinfectant, the sound of the elevator doors closing behind him. He said he hadn't planned to confront her. He just wanted clarity. But clarity arrived in the form of a man exiting the room she'd claimed she was alone in. A man with an accent Trevor didn't recognize. A man confident enough not to flinch. A man who belonged there. Trevor's voice cracked when he described Meghan's face. Not guilt, not shock, calculation. The instant recalibration of someone already planning their next move. She didn't deny it, Trevor said quietly. She reframed it. That line alone detonated the comment sections. Reframed it. Trevor went on to say that when he pressed, Meghan dismissed it as networking, as opportunity, as something he wouldn't understand because he didn't think big enough. The affair, according to him, wasn't emotional. It was strategic. And then came the sentence that made listeners physically sit up. She told me this was the kind of man who changes lives. Tom didn't interrupt. He let the silence stretch. Let listeners connect dots they didn't want to connect. Trevor said the marriage ended shortly after. Not because of a single incident, but because trust collapsed. And when he later learned years afterward about Meghan's Colombia connections resurfacing during her royal years, something clicked in a way that made his stomach turn. I started wondering, he admitted, whether some stories don't end when you think they do. The internet exploded. Clips ripped from the podcast flooded every platform. TikTok stitched reactions. YouTube commentary channels uploaded hour-long breakdowns within minutes. Reddit threads ballooned into the tens of thousands of comments. And one question drowned out all others. If this is all lies, why not end it instantly? Again, the DNA test. Harry, according to this account, was unraveling. Not in public, not in statements, but behind closed doors where there are no cameras to perform for and no scripts to hide behind. Friends noticed his voice shaking on calls, his temper flaring unpredictably. His fixation on comment sections and reaction videos he swore he wasn't watching. He was watching all of it. The worst part wasn't Trevor's story. It was the timelines. Internet sleuths lined up dates with ruthless precision. The Colombia trip, the Australia tour, the shifting pregnancy announcement, the absence of medical specifics, the unusual postpartum appearances, the lack of traditional royal documentation. Individually, each detail could be explained away. Together, they formed something that looked uncomfortably like intent. Harry began asking questions he had never allowed himself to ask before about dates, about doctors, about why everything surrounding Archie's birth felt so controlled. And Meghan felt it. In this telling, she noticed the change immediately. The way Harry stopped meeting her eyes, the way his questions became sharper, less rehearsed, the way he lingered on silences she once filled effortlessly. When he finally said the words out loud, "Why won't you just do the test?" The room went cold. Meghan didn't cry. She didn't scream. She went still. And then she turned it on him. "How dare you?" She snapped, reframing instantly. "After everything I've endured for you, for this family, you're siding with them." Them, the royals, the media, Tom Bower, the mob, anyone but herself, Harry shouted back, not eloquently. Not like a prince trained in diplomacy, like a man whose entire identity was collapsing. "This isn't about them. This is about me not knowing if my son is actually mine." That was the moment, according to this account, something irreparable cracked. Meghan accused him of betrayal, of internalized prejudice, of letting palace paranoia poison his mind. She reminded him of every sacrifice she'd made, every headline she'd endured, every time she claimed the institution tried to break her. And then she delivered the line that stopped the argument dead. "If you force this, you destroy us. Not if you're right. Not if there's truth to hide. If you force this." Harry reportedly left the room without answering. Outside, the world was growing louder by the hour. A former palace staffer appeared anonymously online, claiming the delays in Archie's titles had been tied to unresolved documentation concerns. Another claimed meetings had taken place behind closed doors that were unprecedented in modern royal history. None of it verified, all of it devastating. Buckingham Palace stayed silent, and silence once again did the most damage. Tom Bower returned to one phrase over and over in interviews and posts, never raising his voice, never dramatizing. Innocent people don't fear verification. He didn't need to say more because the public had already filled in the blanks. By the time episode 3 was teased, the question had stopped being, "Is this true?" It had become, "What are they hiding? And how long can they keep hiding it?" And inside a mansion built on sunshine, luxury, and carefully curated narratives, Prince Harry sat alone, realizing something terrifying. That the rebellion he built his life around, the family he abandoned, the crown he walked away from, all of it might have been sacrificed for a story he never truly verified. And once that doubt takes root, it doesn't matter whether it's justified. It destroys everything in its path. The modern fairy tale was no longer cracking. It was hemorrhaging, and the world was waiting for the one piece of truth that could either end the nightmare or confirm it forever.